Two Lonely Souls Scene 1. Amy Maynard was driving her car on the narrow mountain road surrounded by snow-covered trees. She was about to start her most strange vacation in her life. Amy worked as a nurse in the children's department of the Caring Heart Center. It was an asylum for mental disabled people. Amy loved her job and she hoped the children could be cured eventually, even if she knew it was impossible. Most of the children were disabled in a serious way and they weren't able to speak or take care of themselves. She had to feed them and change their diapers. Nobody believed they would be cured and nobody tried even to examine their condition. All clients were considered hopeless. As soon as a new client was committed to the center, it was their final destination. 6 months ago, Amy got divorced and she felt lonely. Even if her relationship hadn't been ideal and she felt a big relief after the divorce, the solitude was much worse. Every day she came back to the empty apartment. She didn't have any own children. Several times she got an idea to adopt a child from the center, but it was a crazy idea. She needed her job and couldn't give it up to take care of a mental disabled child. Amy's parents knew about her worries and they decided to surprise her. She got an unusual Christmas gift, a voucher for 2 weeks' stay at Flores's pension. Flores's pension was a small pension in the mountains and it was an ideal place to relax after work with disabled children. There were only 3 guest rooms there and the most visitors were older couples who wanted to rest in the peaceful nature surrounding the pension. Amy could find her peace there. She thanked her parents, but she wasn't sure if that idea was the right one. It would be another opportunity to think of her lonely life and talk with uninteresting people. She wished she had any company. All of a sudden a crazy idea hit her mind. Even if she couldn't adopt one of the children, she could take them to the vacation. After all, she was a skilled nurse and taking care of them would be easy. Amy wouldn't be alone and she would have a company. The voucher covered the whole double room. She asked the center head for permission and he agreed. His only condition was that the child had to be calm. Several children suffered from violent attacks and they had to be tied to their beds often. Amy nodded. It was quite understandable. Her favorite option was Molly Neal. She was 10 years old and lived in the center since her babyhood. According to the documents, she was retarded heavily. Her disability should be congenital. She was still in diapers, didn't speak, and she spent the entire day in her room or in the common room along with 2 more girls in the same condition. They seemed to play together in some strange way and refused to contact anybody else. However, Amy could see a glimpse of clear thinking in Molly's eyes many times and she suspected something was wrong with the poor girl. When Amy told her decision to her parents, they were shocked first. "Amy, you need a rest and not another lot of work with a disabled child," her mother objected. However, Amy was sure it was a good idea. "Mom, if I'm alone there, it would be even worse. Taking care of a single child would be even a pleasure for me." Amy's mom laughed. "Amy, it's your decision after all. If you prefer a disabled child to a friend, do it." "Mom, a child can provide me with more than a dozen of the so-called friends. The children are sincere and innocent." 2 days later, Amy drove off towards Flores's pension. She bought a car seat, some beautiful clothing of Molly's size and 3 packages of diapers. Molly was surprised when Amy took her from the center and led her to her car, but she didn't show any sign of protest and watched Amy curiously. She let Amy sit her into the car seat and leaned back comfortably. Amy started the engine and drove off. They left the town, got to the highway and finally turned towards the pension. Now Amy had to experience a big surprise. Two Lonely Souls Scene 2. Amy, the voice surprised Amy like a thunderstrike. She almost drove off the road. "Molly, can you speak?" "Yeah, I speak." "How so?" "You never speak at home." "Me afraid you bad." "No, sweetheart, I'm glad you can speak." Molly felt a big relief. She kept listening for a long time and she repeated the words when she was alone or with her mates. She also wondered why her mates didn't understand. She knew that they were different but she didn't have any idea how and why. All big people were nice to them and Molly wasn't sure if it wouldn't change if she spoke. Fortunately, her worries didn't come true and Amy's attitude even improved. Amy stopped at the next rest stop and sat down on the back seat next to Molly. Molly, do you understand me? Me, yes. How did you learn to speak? Me, Molly put her hand to her ear, Hugh. Oh, I see, you listen to us. Wisten. I teach you more, sweetheart. Do you know where we travel? Travel. Oh, sorry, Molly. You don't know what it is. Wait and you will see. Me wait. Amy turned to Molly, hugged her, and kissed her forehead. I promise you will feel good. Thanks. Let's go. We will arrive there in an hour. How? Never mind, sweetheart. Amy drove off again and Molly leaned down and started thinking of the change. What would change if they talked together? What was their vacation and pension? Was it different from the center? They arrived at the pension about an hour later. Amy parked and helped Molly out of the car seat. Molly, you help me carry our luggage. Oh, sorry. I show you. However, do you need a change? Are you wet? Me bit wet, no need change. Are you sure? I don't want you to leak. No, Amy, me no weak. Me pee, she showed one finger to Amy. Do you know when you pee? Tell me when you pee. I know, me too. Molly really knew exactly when she needed a change. She has been using diapers for her entire life and she experienced many leaks. She wasn't able to control her bladder and bowels, but she knew everything about the diapers and their capacity. She peed once since they departed and she knew the diaper would hold one more wetting. Amy smiled, gave Molly a diaper package, took a bag and stepped forward to the reception. The receptionist was a nice old lady. She noticed the diaper bag in Molly's hands and addressed her. Welcome, little one. What's your name? Me name Moe. The lady smiled. She already knew about Molly and wasn't surprised. She passed Amy the key and explained how to get to their room. Molly followed Amy and put the diaper bag into the cabinet. Amy showed her where to put it. They had to return to the car and carry more luggage. When they finished, Amy turned to Molly. Let's put the clothes in the cabinet. These are yours and put them here. Amy pointed at 2 shelves in the cabinet. Molly watched Amy closely and tried to arrange her own clothes in the same way. However, she stared at the dress. She didn't have any idea of skirts and dresses. Amy, what this t-shirt? She held the dress in her hand. Molly, this isn't a t-shirt, this is a dress. You don't need pants and you will wear it to dinner. Molly nodded and put the dress on the shelf. She also looked at the winter overall curiously. She saw overalls, but this one was much thicker. Molly, you need it outside when we walk in the cold weather. They finished unpacking. Amy had to arrange Molly's clothing slightly and showed her how to do it. Molly watched her closely and nodded. Me better then. I know, sweetheart, now we can have a walk outside, but I'm thirsty and you probably are thirsty too. We get juice in the restaurant. Where's? Never mind, I show you, let's go now. Amy took Molly at hand and led her slowly to the dining room. The dining room was a big surprise for Molly. She never was anything but the center. Molly was astonished by the luxurious equipment and stared at the bar, fireplace, and shelves full of bottles with brand drinks. There was only a waiter there. All other guests were somewhere outside. The waiter was an elderly lady and she knew about Molly's condition. Molly startled and hid behind Amy first, but the waiter smiled at her and told in a soft voice, "Sweetheart, don't be afraid, Auntie Mary brings you something." Amy ordered a coffee for her and juice in a sippy cup for Molly. She showed Molly the table and chairs and helped her sit at the table. Molly was quite surprised and kept looking around curiously. It was different from all rooms she knew. The waiter put the coffee and juice onto the table and Amy passed the sippy cup to Molly. Molly, hold it carefully. Molly grabbed the cup clumsily, but she was able to drink the juice without dropping the cup. After all, she did it many times in the center. However, she surprised the waiter with a wide smile. "Thanks." Amy turned to her and stroked her hair tenderly. She was really glad she had taken the little girl with her. Molly finished her drink quickly. She was thirsty indeed. As soon as she put the sippy cup away, her bladder voided itself into the diaper. She was used to it and even felt the strange sensation, but she didn't reveal the connection so far. Me pee. Okay, sweetheart. Amy changes you and we go for a walk then. Amy paid for the drinks and led Molly back to their room. Molly unbuttoned her pants and pulled them down to her knees before lying down. Sweetheart, you keep surprising me, you know how to unbutton your pants. Amy smiled at the little girl. Undressing and dressing was another skill Molly was able to learn. She had enough time to watch how to button and unbutton the pants, pull the t-shirt over her head and put it back on, or put on and remove her sneakers. After several attempts, she was able to do it on her own, but she also hid this skill and wondered why her mates weren't able to do the same. Molly really was cooperative. She closed her eyes, smiled, spread her legs, and waited until Amy untaped the wet diaper and started cleaning her crotch. She knew exactly when to lift her behind and ease the change. Molly, do you really like the diaper changes that much? Amy was a bit surprised when Molly nodded instantly. Yeah, diaper nice soft. She somehow loved the changing process. She could feel loving care. Molly, you need some warm clothing. Amy took off Molly's pants and socks and dressed her into tights, a warm pullover, the warm overall, and winter boots. They left the room and Amy took a thermos with her and stopped at the dining room to fill it with warm tea. Amy led Molly out of the pension. They passed the parking place and headed towards a forest path. Molly was astonished by the beautiful nature and tried to remember everything she noticed. They walked down the path towards a small clearing and a frozen creek. The small girl was used to the center only and now her brain was overwhelmed by new sensations. Amy also was curious and decided to ask Molly more to learn as much as possible. Two Lonely Souls Scene 3. Sweetheart, do you know the names of your roommates? Roommates? The girls you live with? Yeah, Angie and Ewan. What about the staff, the big people? They take care of you? Amy, Maury, Annie, Penny. Great, Molly, you know all of them. You are smart. Molly smiled, but her attention turned to the surroundings. There were a lot of new things around her. What is? She pointed to a tree. This is a tree. Amy tried to teach her the whole sentence. You should say, what is this? What is this? Molly leaned down and grabbed a handful of snow. This is snow, Molly. It is cold. Amy shivered to explain the word cold. Amy kept talking to Molly and Molly was listening to her closely and she tried to repeat all the words and built simple sentences. Tweese, snow, ice, cowed. She definitely was smart and intelligent. However, Molly got a bit bored and she needed some distraction. Amy leaned down, made a snowball and threw it towards the next tree. Molly laughed and did the same. They threw two more snowballs towards the tree until Molly aimed at Amy. She wasn't sure if Amy wouldn't get angry, but Amy laughed. Go ahead, throw and I throw one at you. They started a regular snowball fight and Molly seemed to have great fun. She kept laughing until they stopped about 10 minutes later. Amy pulled Molly closer, wiped away the snow from her overall and hugged her. Sweetheart, how was it? Great. Amy. Molly was panting heavily but she was happy. Are you thirsty? Yeah, please. What about your diaper? Did you pee? Molly hesitated, she wasn't sure. She didn't remember to have peed during the snowball fight, however she pressed her legs together and felt the wet bulge. Me pee. Yeah, the next time tell me I peed, okay? Molly nodded. Amy got the thermos and poured the tea into the cap. Drink slowly, it's hot. Touch it but be careful. Molly touched the cap. Hot. Dis hot, dis is hot. Snow is cowed. Amy waited a bit and she held the cap at Molly's lips. Molly drank up all the tea. The sun was setting slowly and the forest was getting darker. They had to go back to the pension before dusk. Molly, we should go back. It isn't good to be outside in darkness. Darkness. I'll show you then. Molly nodded and they stepped forward. While walking, Amy got curious about Molly's abilities. Molly, do you always know when you pee? No, Amy. Me? I not know I peed, I laugh. Oh, you wanted to tell me. I didn't know when I peed while laughing. Good. Amy. 10 minutes later, Molly felt the urge and her diaper got warm and heavy. Anyway, she even didn't stop and let the pee flow. Amy, I peed. Dear pee change. Well, sweetheart. I change you when we get back to the pension. This is the pension. Amy pointed at the building when they were approaching it. Back in the pension room, Amy pulled off Molly's overall. Molly struggled to pull the pullover over her head, but she managed it finally and lied down on the bed in her tights only. She was looking forward to the change as usual. Her diaper was heavy and soaked. Amy had to clean her thoroughly. When she finished, she asked Molly, "Get the dress, Molly, and put it on just like a t-shirt." Yeah, Amy. Molly stood up, got the dress from the cabinet and pulled it over her head. Now look in the mirror and turn around. Molly turned around in front of the mirror and found it fun. I nice. I am pretty, Amy corrected her. I am pretty, Molly repeated and smiled at Amy. Wait for a little, I put on a dress too. Amy made a quick makeup and put on a dress. Now they were ready to go to dinner. Amy took Molly at hand and led her to the dining room again. There were two older couples sitting at the tables already. Good evening, Amy greeted the other guests. Do, evening. Molly tried to repeat the greeting. One of the couples turned away and Amy could see a disgusted look on their faces. On the other hand, the second couple smiled back and the lady came over. Good evening. You have a beautiful daughter. Amy shook her head. I'm a nurse in the asylum and I took one of the children with me. The lady turned to Molly. Sweetheart, what's your name? Amy sighed. She is special, but Molly lifted her head. Name Moe. The lady smiled again and stroked Molly's hair. Miss, you have a heart of gold if you took this poor child to your vacation. Me no poo, Molly instinctively reacted even if she didn't recognize the meaning of the word, but the facial expression revealed the lady's attitude. The lady smiled at her again. Of course not. The lady returned to her table. Amy led Molly to their table and the waiter brought dinner for all. Amy had to put a bib on Molly and cut her food to smaller pieces, but Molly was able to use a spoon and not to make a big mess. Amy already knew that Molly could eat on her own. The first couple called the waiter and they were talking with her, but the waiter explained something to them and Amy could understand. Our pension is open for everybody. Molly ate her portion slowly, but she managed to stay almost clean and Amy smiled at her. You are a smart and clever girl. After dinner, Amy was about to lead Molly back to their room when the old lady stopped them. Do you have to go to bed already? Molly isn't that small. Let's sit down here on the sofa. Could you tell me more about you? I never could imagine meeting somebody like you. Her husband joined them and they sat down. Molly kept walking around the hall and exploring every single detail. She seemed to be curious. Amy started talking, but she kept her eye on Molly. The little girl was calm and didn't try to run away. Minutes later she approached Amy and turned to her. What is this? She pointed at the big decoration plant in the corner. Sweetheart, this is a plant, but you should wait while I'm talking with these nice people. Oh, let her ask, she needs to learn, the old lady interjected. Yeah, but polite behavior also is something she needs to learn. After all, she should live in a normal community later, I hope for it at least. Right. Sweetheart, you wait the next time and we let you ask. She smiled at Molly and Molly nodded. The lady stroked her hair. Molly tried to understand what had happened. It was quite difficult for her. She had to face the normal life and it was different from the one at the center. The old lady noticed Molly's confusion and she took her at hand and pulled the little girl closer. "Sweetheart, I'll explain this to you. It is called polite behavior. While big people are talking, wait until they can listen to you." "What Wisten?" "Oh, sorry," the old lady understood what was going on. Molly reminded her of her grandchildren when they were about 2 or 3 years old. "They hear what you say." Amy smiled both at Molly and the old lady. Molly apparently felt good and the old lady was almost like her grandma. Molly walked away and explored the room a bit more and asked Amy or the old lady about more items. Anyway, she waited until they stopped talking. 10 minutes later she felt pressure in her bowels. She instinctively stopped and pushed. The back of her diaper expanded and her bladder also voided itself in her diaper. Molly sat down between Amy and the old lady and was oblivious to the poop she was sitting in. "Amy, I peed and pooed," she turned to Amy. "I know, sweetheart, the next time say pooped, nor pooed." The old lady smiled and continued talking with Molly and Amy. Amy first wanted to go change Molly, but she noticed Molly's reaction and continued talking. Molly was getting tired and yawned. Amy excused herself, stood up, and took Molly at hand. "Good night." "Do night," Molly repeated as well as she was able to. Back in the room, Molly pulled the dress over her head and tried to pull down the tights, but it was a bit difficult for her. Amy helped her and led the little girl to the bathroom. "Molly, you take a bath now." She helped Molly into the bathtub, untapped the messy diaper, cleaned the mess and filled the bathtub with clean water and bath foam. Molly was excited. She never experienced a real bath like this. They took showers in the center. Amy put a rubber duck into the bathtub and let Molly play with it. The smile and laugh revealed Molly's big enthusiasm and Amy let her play until the water almost cooled off. After the bath, Amy put a clean night diaper on Molly and Molly put on the pajama on her own and walked over to her bed. She lied down, but she didn't fall asleep yet. Amy undressed, showered, put on her nightshirt, switched off the light, and lied down on her own bed. Molly wasn't able to fall asleep. She was too excited from all the new experiences. Suddenly an idea hit her. At the center, she slept in the room with her roommates and they sometimes were strapped to their beds. Sometimes she lied down to them when they were crying. What if she lied down on Amy's bed? She slowly walked over and lay down next to Amy, but her heart was beating fast. She wasn't sure about Amy's reaction. However, Amy pulled the cover over Molly, cuddled her tightly, and kissed her forehead. "Good night, sweetheart." A small tear appeared in Molly's eye and she fell asleep immediately. Molly's eyes closed, but Amy couldn't fall asleep and kept thinking of the little girl. Molly didn't show any signs of retardation and Amy believed Molly was neglected only. She decided to teach Molly up to the limits of her abilities. Two Lonely Souls Scene 4. Molly was waddling and she felt the heavy and sticky diaper between her legs, but the feeling wasn't unpleasant for her. She also was looking forward to the upcoming change. Back in the pension room, Amy took off the jacket and turned to Molly. "Well, time to change you. We have some time left until dinner and I borrow a sled. It would be fun." "Okay, Amy," Molly smiled widely. Amy removed Molly's boots, unzipped the overall and helped her take it off. Molly lied down on her bed and waited. "Wait, sweetheart, we need a changing pad." Amy brought a changing pad. Molly lifted her behind and lied down again. Amy pulled down her tights and revealed the full diaper. Fortunately it didn't leak, but Molly's crotch was smeared with poop from back to front. "Molly, didn't you really mind that thick and full diaper?" "No, Amy," Molly grinned at Amy. "How so?" Amy was cleaning Molly's crotch with baby wipes. "It is comfy and soft." "You are a smart girl, Molly. You could go to potty if you learned it. You've learned more words, eating and dressing." No please, Molly did puppy eyes on Amy and Amy shrugged only. Potty training could wait. Amy cleaned Molly and was about to put the diaper on her when Molly did puppy eyes again. Dick dear pee please. Why, sweetheart? We don't go that far and come back earlier. I weekay Dick dear pee. Okay, but we don't have that many of them. You need them for the night. You get more. Wait, I'll check how many there are in the package. Amy was a bit amused by Molly's request. Despite her intelligence, the small girl liked the diapers, refused the potty training and required the thick package. There were thick nighttime diapers for every night and a few spare ones in the package, so Amy couldn't fulfill the request. Sweetheart, we drive to the town tomorrow and buy some more. Amy leaned down and kissed Molly's forehead. Until then I can't give you the thick dear pee until night. She wasn't enthusiastic about spending a day in the town, but she didn't want to disappoint the little girl. Okay Amy, Molly stayed calm surprisingly. She probably was a bit more mature than expected and didn't throw a temper tantrum. Suddenly an idea hit Amy. She took a second diaper and put it over the first one but didn't tape it shut. The tights were able to hold the loose diaper and the package was as thick as Molly liked. Thanks, Amy. Molly smiled widely, sat up and kissed Amy instinctively. Amy hugged her and kissed her forehead again. After dressing Molly they walked to the reception desk and Amy borrowed a sled. Molly was staring at the strange thing and Amy had to explain her. Sweetheart, you can sit down on it and ride down the slope. I'll show you it in a jiffy. They walked towards a small hill behind the pension and Amy passed the pulling line to Molly. Molly, pull the sled uphill. She stepped forward and Molly followed her. As they got to the top, Amy stopped. Molly, sit down and I sit down behind you. She pointed at the sled front. Molly sat down and Amy sat down behind her and propelled the sled forward. They sped up and slid down the hill. Amy kept driving the sled by her legs and stopped it finally. Amy, that great. Molly was enthusiastic. Okay, sweetheart, let's ride again. Amy passed the line to Molly and they climbed the hill for the second time. Molly, try to drive with your legs just like I did it. Amy showed Molly how to drive the sled. Molly nodded and she tried to keep the sled straight as much as possible with Amy's help. 2 rides later they climbed halfway only and Amy let Molly ride on her own. The little girl sat down and Amy pushed her forward. Wee, Molly screamed in joy and slid down the hill. She understood how to drive and how to stop. Molly did several more rides until she got exhausted and stopped. I know more, she was panting heavily. Amy took the line and pulled the sled back to the pension to return it. Back in their room Amy helped Molly out of the overall and Molly managed to take off the pullover and she also pulled the tights down to her knees and laid down on the bed. The loose outer diaper fell down to the ground and she realized how wet she was. Her diaper was soaked and she didn't remember when she peed while having fun at sled riding. Amy looked at Molly and realized her sweaty face and body. Sweetheart, you should take a shower before dinner. Take off the tights if you handle it. Molly nodded and she pulled the tights down to her ankles and finally removed them even if she turned it upside down. Amy removed her diaper and led her to the shower. Molly, I set up the warm water and you could try to wash yourself. I'll show you how to do it. Step inside and let the water rinse the sweat. Amy waited and put Molly the shower gel, put it onto your palm and smear it all over your body. Molly nodded and she managed to soap herself and rinse again. Let me help you with your hair, it is more tricky. Amy washed Molly's hair. Next time I wash. Molly looked at Amy and Amy smiled at her. After the shower Amy wrapped Molly into a large towel, dried her off and put a clean diaper on her before drying her hair. Sweetheart, sit down and I dry your hair now. As soon as Molly's hair was dry, Amy undressed and headed towards the shower. Molly, you can put on the dress. If you want to, try to put on the tights. However, take a clean pair. Amy pointed at the cabinet. Amy hurried up, she didn't want to leave Molly unattended for long. Anyway, she didn't have to worry, the little girl was busy putting on the tights. It really was tricky. Surprisingly, she managed it after 2 or 3 attempts and the dress wasn't a real problem. Molly also forgot about the thick diaper while struggling with the tights. The dinner was uneventful and there were no more complaints from the first couple even if they ignored Amy and Molly. On the other hand, Molly used a normal cup instead of a sippy cup and Amy showed her how to use a fork. Molly's motor skills were quite good and she kept improving with Amy's help. After dinner they encountered the older couple and Molly turned to the lady. "We today high Mountie," she said enthusiastically and pointed upwards. "I see that many Mountie," she spread her arms. The older lady stroked Molly's hair and smiled at her. "You had fun, sweetheart." "Yeah, much fun." Molly instinctively took the lady at hand. Instead of staying in the hall they headed to the common room. There were books and table games on the shelves and Molly got interested in them. She browsed the table games and brought Ludo to Amy. "What is this, Amy?" "This is a game. Maybe I can show you how to play it later when we can't go outside." Amy was curious about Molly's abilities. Playing Ludo required counting, but Molly had shown a lot of intelligence and she might be able to handle counting up to 6. Amy remembered when Molly showed her one finger to tell her how many times she had peed in her diaper. Amy took off the die and showed Molly 1 dot and stretched 1 finger. Then she showed 3 dots and stretched 3 fingers. "Molly, your turn," Amy showed 2 dots. Molly looked at Amy and stretched 2 fingers. "Right, sweetheart," Amy showed 5 dots and Molly stretched all 5 fingers. Amy showed 6 dots and her heart was beating fast. Molly stretched all 5 fingers on her right hand and stopped. Something was wrong. She got confused and looked at Amy and the lady. The old lady smiled only and poked Molly's left arm. The little girl got the message instantly, nodded and stretched 1 more finger on her left hand. "My smart girl," Amy hugged Molly and a tear appeared in her eye. The old lady took the die and turned to Molly. "Molly, this is 1, she showed 1 dot and continued, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Molly listened and tried to remember it. 1, she stretched 1 finger. "Right, Molly." 2, dwee, fur, Molly was enthusiastic and considered it a game. She was able to focus on counting for about half an hour until she got bored. Amy was astonished by Molly and she was sure that the little girl was not retarded. Molly yawned and Amy looked at her watch. It was getting late. "Sorry, Molly should go to bed already." She took Molly at hand and left. "Good night." "Do night," Molly repeated the greeting. "Sweetheart, could you undress yourself and I'll change you then?" "Did you pee in your diaper?" Amy asked Molly in their room. Molly shrugged. Her diaper was heavy and wet but she didn't remember when she peed. She was distracted by the dinner and learning and peed involuntarily. "Okay, no problem," Amy smiled but she realized it was about to be an issue later. Anyway, she ignored it for now and changed Molly into the thick nighttime diaper. Molly put on the pajama and lied down in Amy's bed. "I sleep with you." "Of course, sweetheart," Amy smiled, changed into her pajamas and lied down next to Molly. Her eyes closed quickly just like Molly's. 2 Lonely Souls Scene 6. On Saturday in the morning, Amy and Molly had to check out and leave for home. The vacation was over. Molly helped Amy load the suitcases and diaper bags and sat down in the car seat. She was a bit sad when she realized the pleasant time was over. "Amy, I have to go back," Molly asked Amy when they drove off. "Yeah, sweetheart, but I have an idea." "What idea, Amy?" "If I could take you from the center for the vacation, I would try to ask our head and take you home more often, even every day. However, you still have your roommates there." "Yeah, I have and I love them," Molly nodded. The girls really were as nice as possible in their condition. She even was looking forward to seeing them again even if she couldn't talk with them. Amy calmed down a little. Molly still could stay at the center and spend more time with Amy. Anyway, Amy wished to adopt Molly and have more time to homeschool her. Unfortunately, she didn't have money in her own house. She hoped for a miracle. Molly's bladder was getting full and she felt a growing pressure. Suddenly she realized she could ask Amy about the strange sensation. What would happen? The little girl hesitated for a while, but she didn't say anything and clenched her muscles. She was curious how long she could continue until the pressure would get painful. Surprisingly, the pressure didn't grow that quickly and Molly didn't relax the muscles for long. Meanwhile, she instinctively tried to press her legs together, but the thick package prevented her from it. Finally, she closed her eyes, relaxed the muscles, and enjoyed the warm feeling of the wet diaper. "I peed, Amy," she announced. "Okay, you can get changed when we arrive at home." Amy parked the car in front of her home and helped Molly get off. "What house is this?" "I live here with my mom and dad." "You mom?" "She is not with you and she not take care. She did it long ago when I was a little girl." "And she is still you mom?" "Yeah, she is my mom forever." And Warner, Amy's mother, heard the voices and opened the door. "Welcome home, Amy. Oh, who is this little girl?" "I am Moe, good morning." Anne was taken aback. According to Amy's description, she expected a retarded child and Molly didn't look retarded even if Anne noticed her thick diaper package. "Come in, the lunch is ready but I have to add a plate, or?" "Can she eat on her own, Amy?" "I can eat," Molly smiled. "I am smart." "Yeah, Mom, she only needs to cut her food into small pieces. She can use a spoon and fork." "Sweetheart, sit down and remove your shoes. I will help you with your jacket." "Amy, we bwinder luggage." "Oh yes, sweetheart." Amy and Molly returned to the car and they carried 2 suitcases and a large diaper pack to the entrance hall. "I help you remove your jacket and shoes," Amy turned to Molly. "I'll do it, Amy." "Go and greet Dad," Anne interjected. Amy removed her shoes and winter jacket and entered the living room. Molly sat down, removed her shoes and let Anne remove her jacket. "Sweetheart, you are smart indeed. However, you wear diapers. Don't you go potty?" "No miss. Diapers are comfy and I love them. Call me Anne." "Thanks Anne." Anne stroked Molly's hair and kissed her forehead. She loved the girl at the first sight. Amy didn't have her own children and Molly was a lovely child. She definitely was not retarded but she needed education. They entered the living room and Anne led Molly to her husband, Patrick. "This is the child Amy took to her vacation. She really is lovely and I don't understand why she was sent to the center." Patrick looked at Molly and leaned down. "Sweetheart, what's your name?" "My name is Moe," Molly replied and smiled at him. "You Patwick?" Patrick smiled back and hugged her tightly. He wished he had a granddaughter like her. Molly hugged him back and kissed his cheek. Anne added the plate, fork, and spoon for Molly. "Let's sit down and have our lunch." Molly sat down and she was able to eat as she learned at the pension. Anne and Patrick kept watching her inconspicuously and they were enthusiastic. Did Amy manage to teach the little girl that much in 2 weeks? After lunch, they walked over to the living room and Amy carried the luggage to her bedroom and returned. "Do we relax after lunch or do we go for a walk better?" "A small walk is a good idea and we can show Molly the surroundings." Molly felt the pressure in her bowels after lunch. Her diaper was wet already after the journey and now it was even heavier. She needed a change already and decided to poop. She pushed shortly and relaxed her muscles. "I pooped and I need change," she turned to Amy. However, Anne reacted quickly. "Sweetheart, can I change you?" "Yeah Anne, change me please." Molly hurried up towards Amy's bedroom. She noticed Amy walking there and knew the way. 5 minutes later she was back with a clean diaper, baby wipes, and changing pad. Anne was amused. She was sure that Molly would be able to go potty if she wanted, at least for pooping. Anne untaped the messy diaper and cleaned Molly thoroughly. The little girl closed her eyes and smiled. Do you want to wear this thick diaper indeed? Anne got curious about the answer. Yeah, Anne. It is comfy. Molly looked like a happy toddler. It is okay, sweetheart, and leaned down and stroked Molly's hair gently. She put the clean diaper on Molly. Molly instantly pulled her pants back up, stood up, and carried the changing pad and clean baby wipes back to Amy's room. Anne packed the dirty diaper and wipes and carried them to the outside bin. Amy took Molly at hand and led her out of the house. They got to the street and turned to the left. Hello, Amy, are you taking your work home? A young woman with a small toddler boy in the stroller greeted them. I am not work, I am Moe, Molly protested, and the young woman smiled at her. Amy, where did you find her? This girl doesn't belong to the center. You're right, Emily. I do my best to stay with her. Do you think of adopting? I wish I could. The walk was another pleasant experience for Molly. Instead of nature, she could watch a town, houses, streets, and cars. Amy was leading her at hand and kept explaining. Anne and Patrick joined the discussion occasionally. When they returned home, Molly realized her diaper was wet and she again didn't remember to have peed. She was a bit disappointed. She liked her diapers, but she wanted to know when she peed. Anyway, she forgot her worries and enjoyed the company of Amy and her parents. After dinner, Amy put Molly to bed and waited until the little girl fell asleep. She left the bedroom then and sat down at the table with her parents. Amy, your idea was great, and smiled at her daughter. Yeah, it was. However, I'm not satisfied. Molly deserves a better fate than life at the center. She does indeed, but I don't have any idea how to arrange it. You should stay with her, however, you can't lose your job. Mom, I asked the head of the center to let her stay with me after work at least. Okay, it is a good start, Amy. I think so. Good night. Amy left for the bathroom, and after showering and changing into her pajamas, she lay down next to Molly. Two Lonely Souls Part 7. The next morning Molly opened her eyes, but she was a bit disoriented and didn't know where she was. Amy still was asleep. However, Molly recalled the day before and got up slowly. She pressed her legs together to find out the package between her legs was soaked. The little girl got curious and walked towards the door and opened it to face Anne. Good morning, princess, she hugged Molly. Do moaning Anne. Let Amy sleep, I take care of you, and tiptoed to the bedroom and took the clean diaper, cleaning utensils, and Molly's clothes. She led Molly to the bathroom. Oops, we don't have a changing table, let's go to the living room and change you on the couch. Molly nodded, lay down on the couch, and pulled down her pajama pants. Anne untaped the wet diaper and the front dropped down. My princess is soaked. She stroked Molly's hair and started cleaning her diaper area. Molly closed her eyes and smiled happily. Hey princess, you like your diapers a lot. Let's make a deal. You can have your diapers, but you promise me to learn everything else. Yeah, Anne, Molly grinned, and it was the first time when she did it. What is a viewsync? Proper speaking, eating, dressing, and schooling later. Shoeing. Princess, children of your age go to school and they learn a lot. I go to school. I don't know, princess. You need to learn many skills before going to school, but Amy could help you and she even could homeschool you. Meanwhile, Anne finished diapering Molly and Molly dressed herself. Anne realized that Molly already had some skills. They walked over to the kitchen and Anne pointed to the chair. Molly, sit down and we'll have our breakfast. I'll show you how to eat properly. Anne put a plate in front of Molly and gave her a fork and a table knife. Here you are, a slice of bread, and you will smear the peanut butter onto it. Hold the bread in your left hand and take the knife into your right hand. Molly nodded and obeyed Anne. Anne took Molly's right arm and led her. Dip the knife into the jar, scoop a bit, smear it onto the bread. Anne let go of Molly's arm, held the jar, and encouraged Molly, now your turn, princess. The first attempt almost was a disaster when Molly dug into the jar almost to its bottom, but she didn't give up. Finally, there was peanut butter on the bread and on Molly's hands, but her heart jumped. She had managed to use a knife. She ate the bread and licked the peanut butter from her hands. And smiled only. Princess, now you wash your hands, and led Molly to the bathroom and showed her how to wash her hands. Run the water, turn the tap, rinse your hands, soap them, rinse again, close the tap, dry. Oh, you are here, Molly, Amy's voice sounded behind them. Amy woke up and found out Molly had left. No problem, our little princess is learning how to eat and how to wash her hands, and replied instead of Molly. Where is Dad? He went fishing. I don't know how he can fish in winter, but he insists on it and he even succeeds sometimes. Don't wonder, Mom. He fishes near the power plant and the water is warm there. I saw it last winter when I was curious about the place and he led me there. After breakfast, Amy took Molly to a walk outside. She headed towards the nearby playground. There was snow everywhere and the sandbox and swings were covered by it, but they met Emily and her son there. The small boy was playing in the snow and he ran towards Molly as soon as he spotted her. "I Jimmy. You. Mo we. You play?" "Yeah, we play," Molly nodded and she grabbed a handful of snow. Snowball fight. She threw a snowball but she missed Jimmy. He didn't hesitate and aimed at her. Amy and Emily watched the scene and laughed a bit. They apparently understand each other. However, Molly is smart indeed, she looks like she matched Jimmy's age. Emily turned to Amy. Maybe she is even better, she can dress and undress herself and she is able to eat on her own except using a sharp knife. However, she likes her diapers a lot and I'm afraid she doesn't want to potty train at all. Don't worry about it, Amy. Maybe later, but she likes you a lot. You really should adopt her. The social services don't let me do it if I don't have a proper house and source of income. I'd have to quit my job to take full-time care of her. Yeah, it would be great if you could have a nice small house like those ones. Emily pointed at a row of new houses behind the playground. And a magic bag of gold. Emily, do you know why you are my best friend? I like your daydreams a lot, Amy hugged Emily. You always improve my mood. Molly and Jimmy got tired from the snowball fight and they returned back to the adults. A snowman please, Jimmy pulled his mom's arm. Okay, Amy helps me and you two help us too, Emily smiled and started making the snowman. Both Jimmy and Molly were enthusiastic and they seemed to be friends despite the age and size difference. Oh, it's almost lunchtime, Emily looked at her watch. We should go home. Really? Amy forgot about the time. Molly, let's go. Emily put Jimmy into the stroller and left. Amy took Molly at hand. Princess, how's it been? Greet Amy. Jimmy is nice, he is my friend. Yeah, you played together. Molly stepped forward and she felt the heavy diaper between her legs and a bulge in the back. She peed and pooped while playing and didn't notice it at all. Amy, I peed and pooped, Molly's voice revealed a slight disappointment. Molly, do you mind it? Amy was surprised by the tone of Molly's voice. You can potty train. No, diapers are nice, Molly composed herself quickly. She really didn't want to give up her diapers but she wanted to control their use. Back at home, Amy helped Molly remove the winter jacket and led her to the bathroom to change her. Molly forgot about the disappointment and enjoyed the diaper change as usually. In the afternoon a snowfall started and Amy with Molly had to stay at home. Unfortunately they didn't have Ludo and Amy had to think of another game. She found the Black Peter and hoped that Molly would be able to understand the rules. Fortunately, Black Peter was simpler than Ludo and Molly understood the rules easily. Patrick returned from fishing and they spent a great afternoon. However, Molly was getting sad. I go to the center. Princess, Amy tries to take you home after work and you come again. and calmed her down. Promise. I promised to do my best, Amy kissed Molly's forehead. We'll have a delicious dinner now, and added. Princess, do you help me? They finished the game and started making dinner. Molly was eager to help and she was able to bring the food from the fridge or pantry. She also forgot about her worries and smiled again. After dinner she again cuddled to Anne and asked her for diaper change and bath. Anne was more than glad to take care of her princess and hoped that Amy would be able to arrange taking Molly home after work. On Monday Amy and Molly arrived at the center. Molly was wearing the thick diaper again. She smiled at the nurse on duty. Do moaning, Penny. Molly. Do you speak? Penny almost fainted. Yeah, we had a nice vacation with Amy. You angry I speak? Not at all, sweetheart. Penny smiled at Molly and stroked her hair. Amy, are you a witch? Not me, Penny. Molly is a miraculous child. You will see. Amy took Molly at hand and led her to her room. As soon as Amy helped her take off her winter jacket and boots, Molly spread her arms and hurried up to her roommates. Hugo, Angie, Ewan, she hugged them and both girls hugged her back. Despite their retardation, they still were emotional and smiled at Molly happily. Let's play. Molly sat down and she forgot about Amy for that moment. Amy used it quickly, locked the door and hurried up to the center head. Good morning, Mr. Carter. Good morning, Mrs. Maynard. What did you do to Molly during the vacation? Did you cure her? Oh, rumors are spreading quickly. I didn't have to cure her in my opinion. I'd guess she is not retarded at all. You might be right, anyway our psychologist should have an appointment with her. What if she is not retarded? No idea, to be honest. If she had a family, she could return to them. Amy realized that nobody had visited Molly since her birth. According to our documents, she is the daughter of a homeless druggie and her biological mother died at the labor. Mr. Carter explained to Amy, I've just checked on the documents when I learned about her sudden advance. Oh, she'd deserve a loving family though. I think so, but where to find a family? Wait, are you speaking about adoption? I wish I could, but you know about my situation. However, I'd like to ask you for a favor. Could I take her home after work? I spent 2 weeks with her. Why not? Mr. Carter nodded, however you can't take her home after a night shift. I see, anyway my parents can take care of her on weekends. I live with them. Yeah, but you still are responsible for her. Thank you, Mr. Carter. You really are generous. Amy's heart jumped and she left the office in a good mood. She called her mother immediately and told her the good news. Anne was enthusiastic about it and promised to make a delicious dinner again. Molly kept talking to her roommates and didn't mind their lack of response. She also didn't hide her skills anymore. However, she cuddled to Amy whenever Amy appeared to check on them. At the end of her shift, Amy entered the room. Molly, I can take you home. Molly jumped and hurried up to Amy. Angie, Ewan, I come again. Amy helped her into the winter jacket and led her outside. They drove home. Anne and Patrick were waiting for them already. Anne took Molly to the kitchen and the little girl assisted her again. At the dinner, Molly suddenly turned to Amy. Amy, are you my mom? You take care of me. No, I'm not your mom, sweetheart. Your mom, Amy stopped. Molly looked at Amy and didn't understand but Anne got the message. Your mom went far away, sweetheart, and she never comes back. You are my mom then, Amy. Molly looked at Amy again. A tear appeared in Amy's eye. She desperately wished that, I'm not, yet. I promise I will be your mom. She didn't know if she could keep the promise, but she hoped for it and hoped for a miracle. On Wednesday, Molly had an appointment with the psychologist. The psychologist talked with her and let her do several tests. After the appointment, she called Amy. Amy, I was surprised by Molly's abilities. To be honest, I'm not surprised. I'd guess she is healthy. Yeah, according to the test results she is. She passed all tests of the preschooler level. A bit of education would move her to 3rd or 4th grade easily. Well, is she able to go to school then? Not directly, she might need some logopedic lessons first. Do you know a logopedist? We don't have a specialist at the center, but I could try it. I had a semester at school. Moreover, you could purchase a book and train Molly at home. She doesn't have any serious speech defect. What about her diapers? Amy, Molly definitely is able to get potty trained, but she doesn't want to. How were you able to find it out? It was simple, a couple of cunning questions did the work. Amy nodded and started thinking of the future. Molly was quite able to get schooled, but she couldn't get her education at the center. The best option would be homeschooling. What do you think of her education? Amy continued. I'd recommend homeschooling her, however I know about your situation. You hardly could give up your job. Well, let's imagine that I could stay at home with Molly. Would I be the right person to homeschool her? Why not? You can teach her more than the 3rd or 4th grade. Thank you. I'll do my best to find a way to educate her. Hopefully, she can stay at the center. Of course, she doesn't have anybody else to live with. I'll recommend that she stays here as long as possible and I arrange the logopedic sessions. Amy said goodbye and led Molly home. They had a pleasant time ahead. Amy had to go to work on Friday. They stopped at the bookstore and Molly stared at the shelves full of books. What is this, Amy? These are books, we can read them and learn. I wanna wed Amy. You have to learn it first, sweetheart, but you will learn, I promise. Amy purchased a handbook of logopedy and turned to Molly. Princess, I will read this book and teach you to speak properly. I not speak properly. You have to learn how to say R and L and a bit more. I will learn, Amy. They arrived at home and Molly was eager to tell Anne about the appointment and the book. Anne, I was with a psych. Molly didn't remember the difficult word. Do you mean psychologist? Yeah, she talked with me and I did funny things. What funny things, princess? Tests, Mom, Amy interjected, and she was quite good at them. Amy got a book. We were at a shop and I see many books, dear. Which book? I learn speak. A handbook of logopedy, Amy explained. It's great, princess. Amy can teach you and I can teach you too. Let's go to the kitchen now, I need my little helper. The next days passed uneventfully. Molly was happy and so were Amy and her parents. Molly spent a lot of time at Warner's house, but she liked her roommates at the center as well. She also had several appointments at the psychologist and talked with the nurses at the center. She was diligent and learned speaking in about 3 weeks. She was able to speak with only a few mistakes. The staff liked the talkative girl. On the other hand, Molly became oblivious to the diaper condition and she was like a happy toddler. It was no change from the viewpoint of the center staff, but Amy noticed it. Anyway, she didn't worry and she was happy about Molly's advance in speaking, dressing, eating and more skills. Molly became independent except for diapers and she even was able to watch her roommates for short periods. Suddenly Amy got worried. What if Molly couldn't stay at the center anymore?